Welcome on into the show. My name is Deny Gallagher, and I am joined, as always, by the snare campaign provocateur, the backbeat of a new generation. It's Benny Horowitz. What's up, dude?
Hi, Denny.
How's it going?
How are you?
Oh, I'm doing so good. How are you today?
Oh, I'm great. Thanks. Everything is fine. I'm alive. My wife's walking out the door. I didn't close the door.
Oh, she's going to close it?
Yeah. Yep. No, we're all good here, man. What's going on in the JC?
Oh, man, dude. It's getting weird, and not in a good way. But yeah, man, it's, it's staying strong. There's a lot more beards and what are those glasses, like the clear glasses? I don't know what you call those.
I've seen those around. And what kind of beards are hipsters doing these days? Because I know
it hasn't evolved.
I know like the January 6th people get made fun of for their neck beards. Are like hipsters not allowed to wear neck beards?
I think that entire culture hasn't evolved in like 10 to 15 years, but
beard culture.
Yeah, hasn't evolved. It's just a lot of waxes still. People thinking that they look like Black Thought, but they don't. Like both people white and of other races thinking that they have that beard.
Yes. It's just a great style. It's a great style though. The Roots, they kick it right. They look cool.
But yeah, man.
Yeah, back and forth from the studio. Let's get into the home stretch, the Gaslight record.
I love it.
Feeling really confident about it now. If you asked me a month ago, I wouldn't have known what to tell you.
Yeah.
And now I'm feeling good. At the very least, bare minimum, I can say now that I like it.
Yeah.
And, the public opinion be damned. I think it's pretty good. So we'll see how it goes.
I love, and the more that we've gotten to do this, the more, we have gotten to know each other. I know when you're like really going through it creatively, radio silence, LeBron, 0 Dark 30 the entire time. The more you start to talk about it, the more you're like, I like this. So.
It's true. It's true. I mean, it's general excitement, like, yeah. It's funny. It's like sometimes in my position, like, a lot of the time I'm a dad, I'm a normal person. I'm sweeping and I'm shoveling and I'm, cleaning stuff and trying to help people with like and it's like, I think you can bring creativity to those things, but it's obviously not when you're using it, and you forget sometimes like how fueled by this process I actually am, and like what happens to me and my mind and my body and my spirituality when I'm not creating something, it's a problem for me. And that the older I get, like being able to pinpoint that and highlight it and giving it to yourself when you need it, expectations or not, is important, and like, that's why I'm happy to like put out the Town Liar record. And, I haven't been pushing it. I haven't been doing that, but I love those songs.
Yeah. Good.
And it fulfilled me to work on them, and they sound good and I'm happy they're out there. So it's like, it's an interesting balance, I guess, like on a personal level, trying to navigate the day to day. Like when you're not like, you feel so fulfilled when you are creating, but you can't do it every second of every day. Like you'd just be a madman. So it's an interesting balance, but it's funny that you notice the difference.
It's like the high that you get. It's like, that's so unsustainable that it's almost like when you're hiking and there's like a vista that you can look out.
Right.
You can only stop and stay there for a couple of minutes and then you got to keep moving. But
yeah. And you just pinpointed the whole other sociological disaster, which is what musicians and artists and creative people do to fill those voids when they don't have it, which is the dangerous thing. So, but that's a whole nother podcast, isn't it?
Well, you know what I think they actually do to fill that void?
Probably listen to the tune-up in This Day in Music History.
You got it. Worst segue of all time. What do you got?
I liked it. Well, since we're like the Who Owns Everybody's Shit podcast.
Yeah.
On this day in 1960, I didn't know this, Frank Sinatra launches the first fully artist-owned label, Reprise Records. So he owned his own masters. Some of his cohorts, Dean Martin, Rosemary Clooney, joined the label, but they only had it for 3 years and sold it to Warner Brothers in 1963. And after that, it became the home to, Jimi Hendrix, Joni Mitchell, Green Day eventually, like all sorts of bands. But so obviously he sold out fairly quickly and took the check. Kind of sounds like an ABA NBA kind of thing. Frank was like, "Fuck this, I'm doing my own shit," but not with the idea of like really starting anything different. I think he maybe was just eyeing the eventual paycheck, it sounds like.
Yeah.
But interesting that Frank was the first guy to kind of pinpoint this, especially in an era where this was probably really difficult. And if you weren't Frank Sinatra and someone with that kind of
Backing.
yeah, and money backing. Yeah. Like there's so few artists that probably could have even begun to start to pull this off. And when I hear about it, shit, 60 some odd years later, it impresses me. I like that. It sounds kind of punk rock. Thanks, Frank. Good job.
Further proof that Jay-Z has modeled his entire career off of trying to be Frank Sinatra.
Right.
He may have started to hit his own label, and then Jay-Z comes along with, like Rock Nation and then Tidal. So a bunch of these incremental investments to try to get the bag.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's it, man. That's the way it's going these days.
Welcome to capitalism. Ever heard of it? All right, Benny. On this day in 2008, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers performed the halftime show of the Super Bowl at University of Phoenix Stadium. They played American Girl, Won't Back Down, Free Fallin', Running Down a Dream. We know how that night ended, but what we don't know is how 15 years to that fateful night, at that same stadium, they'll play host to a Rihanna concert and I guess also a football game.
Yeah, I remember this performance.
Yeah, I mean,
it was always, the halftime show is tricky business, as we know. Not everybody pulls it off, and especially when you're like a rock band trying to play in full. But this is one of those times where you just took. Is there a place you could have put Tom Petty in his band that he didn't sound good? No. Like, really, no. Like, these are just fucking pros. The songs are awesome. They're like, do you think at the time in like 08 where Petty wasn't having as much like mainstream commercial success, do you think there was a lot of people in America who knew American Girl and didn't know who sang it?
100%.
There was, right?
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy to think that he was that level, but I think it's true. So I love that halftime show. You know what? I'm always here for Rihanna too.
Yeah.
Like
100%.
We know that's going to be good. Ever since I heard Rihanna cleans her own house, she's been cool with me.
The thing about like this Petty stuff though is I feel like that was, we were still in America where at least like culturally, like you could throw out like the Rolling Stones, Petty on like the Super Bowl and most people would love it. And this was right around the rise of the internet. I think if you threw out like say Twitter and all that stuff comes along like 3 years earlier and there's a larger voice of less people online, so like less people's voices were more amplified, I think that whole change comes a little bit sooner. And it's really sad because these are like classic American. It was when the bottom line and touring revenue, they were like, oh, this person has the highest grossing tour. Right. Let's just put them Super Bowl halftime. And now it's completely different.
And who in the NFL at that time was listening to Petty on the regular? Not sure a lot. But that is an interesting thing you bring up because the next year was when Bruce played in 09.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we haven't seen too many of those like classic rock type people filling those shoes since then. So I think you might be onto something.
Who would be the next one? Because last year I feel like they had the opportunity, like maybe like the Chili Peppers to be like they seem to do more. Like last year was about Southern California and that whole scene. So I don't know, Phoenix. Who's some?
Like you got to think about songs, like American Girl, that that got bigger than the band. Like songs that took on their own life where. People could walk on stage and they won't know the artist, but the second they start playing the song, they'll know the song. Yeah. And who immediately came to mind? I hate to give him this credit. Coldplay?
Yeah.
Like
I have that.
Fucking stadium rock band. They look ridiculous, but the second they start playing, everybody in the world knows those damn songs. They're familiar. They're in everything. So I don't know. My vote might be for the Coldplay now.
This is a interesting question. Kind of bring it back to Rihanna. does Rihanna have any songs that are bigger than her name? It's like Disturbia was like a pretty big song, but I feel like she's a billionaire because of her makeup.
Well, this is where I'm gonna go ahead and duck out of the conversation. You know
Okay.
why? Because I'm a
'Cause
42-year-old man who doesn't listen to
yeah,
contemporary pop music that's on the
yeah,
radio and on TikTok, and I haven't been for the entirety of Rihanna's career. So to me, yes, her name is far bigger than any song. I think Umbrella is the only
yeah.
one I could
Hey,
rock off the
hey,
top of my head.
yeah,
Um, but I think that is probably at least equally responsible in the fact that I'm an old Jewish guy,
yeah.
and it's not for me. You know what I listened to all last week again? Sweet Exorcist by Curtis Mayfield.
There we go.
You know, like
I'm
like
gonna halftime show near you.
like I'm into
Yeah,
the post heroin jazz soul thing in the early 70s right now. Like, I don't know what the fuck's going Rihanna.
yeah,
Sorry,
yeah. Oh man, what's that song that she has? It's like "Sex in the Air." I like the smell of it. I think that one's bigger than Rihanna.
I like the lyrics.
All right. All right, Benny. Let's move on. Well, speaking, kind of leading into it perfectly, Benny, the Rock Hall has announced their 2023 nominees, and they're paying tribute to artists across a wide range of musical genres. Man, this is the funniest one. I'll name the rest of them. Kate Bush, after the year that she had with Stranger Things, gets the Rock Hall nom. Like, we need a little transparency here. If you weren't going to put Kate Bush in before this show, come on.
Fair point.
And the list, and she should be in there. You know how I feel about the female singer songwriter. I'm all for it. But the list includes Kate Bush, Sheryl Crow, Missy Elliott, Iron Maiden, Joy Division, New Order, Cyndi Lauper, George Michael, Willie Nelson, Rage Against the Machine, Soundgarden, The Spinners, and A Tribe Called Quest. Also, the White Stripes in there as well. They can't put everybody in this year. Benny, who gets snubbed from this list?
Well, I appreciate your Kate Bush argument here. Because, it was almost comical to me. I respect Kate Bush, and I don't want to make it sound like I don't. I think she's a fine artist.
Mhm.
But I grew up with Kate Bush as like, oh, my mom likes her, and people who go to like the Renaissance Fair like her. Like that was the genre, the subgenre. And I think it kept pretty much that way until about a year and a half ago. So there's a fair point to be made in what you're saying there. Now, I have a case for Tribe Called Quest here.
Oh,
I know they've already failed once. Now, I think Tribe Called Quest are being punished for being revolutionary at this point. Now, I did a little research on it. And what are some of the top hip hop songs of 1991 when Tribe Called Quest, like, most famous record comes out? OPP, Naughty by Nature, DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince with Summertime. This is when Ice Cube broke off from NWA. NWA was doing their own thing. Public Enemy was on the way down. And it was before, that next era started kicking up, especially with the West Coast stuff. So for a band who I think, or a group who I think completely revolutionized hip hop in so many ways, the production style, lyrically, what Q-Tip was doing with record samples and stuff, and what was going on in New York at the time, I think it completely brought this genre from one section to another and cemented a certain type of hip hop. This is when branches started, and now after 50 years of this stuff, hip hop's all over the map. You know what I mean? Like it's like rock now, where you have old hip hop guys, saying Nas Illmatic will always be the best and hate Drake. Like we're at that point now where it's the same dumb conversations we used to have with rock and roll are happening now with hip hop. And I think it's important to recognize the era Tribe Called Quest was in and how revolutionary they were at the time. And to me, they're a fucking shoo-in to get it.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like, just ditto everything that you just said about Tribe Called Quest. So I'm thinking like this entire list is not going to get in, and it all, we're going to do the NBA All-Star stuff in a little bit. It's like if you're taking somebody in, you got to take somebody out as well. So I think we get, I think Kate Bush is going to have to face the Legends Committee if we're talking about like the Baseball Hall of Fame in like a few years. We're going to have to let this thing simmer down. But I think Sheryl Crow, first ballot Hall of Famer. Missy Elliott, Iron Maiden, yeah, they gotta be in there.
Gotta be in.
See, the Joy Division New Order thing, I don't know where that this is gonna come down. I think they may have to wait a little bit.
So you're asking the wrong guy on that one. To me,
Yeah.
that's a shoo-in too, because of, again, like
They'll probably get in then.
like I know for sure with 100% that my music doesn't sound like my music without Joy Division and New Order. Like
Yeah.
that is how big those bands were and how big those movements were in rock. I mean, you bring up why is Missy Elliott just a lock?
Well,
that
'cause
wasn't like such a huge career. Like how long did it last? Or
Missy
is that more
Elliott.
for producer credits and stuff?
I think she's got a lot of those, and because you know what it is, I think she represents kind of that. What was the Super Bowl that really like brought her back? Do you
What
remember
did
like
she
they brought her out with like Eminem
Yeah.
and like that whole thing? And ever since then, she's
It's
been getting
super duper
flowers.
fly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. It's
Um.
15 when Katy Perry brought her out.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think you know what you're seeing with this is it's very much a court of public opinion. If you bring Missy Elliott on the ballot in 2014, not sure that this is the same conversation. Let's see, Cyndi Lauper. I, I mean, girls just want to have fun. Song that's bigger than
And
her.
again, somebody who wrote a ton of songs for other
Yeah,
people.
George Michael, 100%. Willie Nelson in. Rage Against the Machine has to be in. Soundgarden, 100%. Man, that's gonna be sad that we don't have Chris Cornell here for Soundgarden going in.
Yeah.
Um,
Be nice to see Matt Cameron get in again. Probably be his second time,
Yeah.
I think. That's cool.
White Stripes. Do they have to wait?
Yeah, like let's give him a couple years.
Yeah,
Like
okay.
that's why I'm hearing this list, and it's like, okay, Iron Maiden's not in yet.
Yeah.
Get Eddie in the hall.
Yeah.
I mean, just sheerly for design, you get to fucking put Eddie in there now. Some giant statue of Eddie. Like, that's reason enough to get him in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think some of the rooks, those are the people I think, just like the regular Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
They got a couple years to wait. They don't get 75% of the vote. I'm not trying to put Scott Rowland in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame here.
Oh, well.
Jesus Christ. This is the last two Hall of Famers, Fred McGriff and Scott Rowland.
Yeah. That's what we're dealing with.
I watched 90s and 2000s baseball, and I got to tell you guys, fine. Not good enough. Not good enough. I'm sorry.
Oh, we got to start
if
ripping
Don
packs
Mattingly's
again.
not in the Hall of Fame,
Yeah.
Come on. Get these motherfuckers out of here. Crazy.
This has been baseball. All right, Benny, next headline today. We're going to talk about someone who I think down the road is going to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and that's Lizzo. And now she has legal documents that back up that match her DNA results from her test. So according to U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, the Grammy winner, age 34, has succeeded in registering 100% That Bitch from her famous song as a federal trademark. So when you're trying to print your 100% That Bitch t-shirt, you got to pay Lizzo a little something going forward, giving her exclusive rights for the Truth Hurts lyric for her apparel. All right, Benny. Obviously, we're cool with this. Love this. That 100% That Bitch should have been the name of this podcast. But is there anything from your career that you'd love to have a trademark for to put on t-shirts and whatnot?
Always this is complicated, okay?
Yeah.
There's a lot here. And when I hear this story and Lizzo had a co-writer on the song, it was potentially a phrase someone said before her. The co-writer claims that they were the ones who came up with it. Lizzo clearly popularized it, brought it to a different level, and made it an actual thing. So as far as like who came up with it and who deserves a trademark, I don't know. But the one thing I'm sure about is if Lizzo wasn't the one going after this trademark, someone else would have went after the trademark, probably gotten it, and none of the people who wrote it were going to get money from it. So when I see an artist do something like this, I don't necessarily think it's cool, but I understand it because it's like, I did say that shit. I put it in a song. I made everybody know it. And why am I going to let JJ hedge fund, blah, 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 scoop this up and fucking, and they're the ones getting paid on it. So I think it's fine and I think it's cool and it's obviously a fun phrase. I don't think I could rock the shirt. But there's nothing necessarily I would have wanted trademarked, especially for the fact that like you know, I don't think it would have made any money. But like the idea that things can get taken from me, dude, I'm a fucking drummer. I've been getting my ideas lifted and claimed as other people's since the beginning of my career. That's just how being a drummer works. Like you think you're inside of a band, every idea you come up with is basically co-opted by someone else, or at least the credit is given to them. Fuck, I came up with the name Mercy Union. I got kicked out of the fucking band. You think I've got any money for that? Like, so it's like these weird things that always sit there. And like if you went ahead and put the receipts for all of them, you'd probably spend your entire life counting receipts. So I'm just gonna keep making shit and hoping something nice comes back to me.
I feel like we got to change up Everybody Love Everybody just a little bit so that, like, I don't know, like how you do it so that you can get the credit, put it on a t-shirt and off to the
Everybody
moon.
loves somebody. We got to
Everybody
change it
loves
a little.
everybody loves somebody. I like that.
Yeah.
Oh man, this is a complete non sequitur, but I gotta ask this when it comes to music. We've talked a bunch on this show about how like other countries fund the arts and stuff like that. And what I'm learning in all these classes with like film is there's so many tax credits for
Mm,
to bring these like films and everything like that, and the way that you can like leverage that to get money for your stuff.
yeah.
Why does stuff like this not exist in like music outside of the fact that a movie is a multi-million dollar business that you're bringing to a state, and a record is not that big in scale?
You're saying why isn't they're like funding and stuff for things like
Yeah,
that?
yeah. So like why like isn't there like a New Jersey music commission that like helps people that are trying to put together their records?
I mean, good question. I think, a lot of the places you see do stuff like that are places that lean towards a more, liberal, progressive kind of ideal. And the countries that really take care of artists, especially the ones I know, are Canada, basically all of Scandinavia, France. These are the places where if you are from that country and you decide to be an artist, you're going to get help to be an artist. And if you stay in Canada and you release your music through those labels and stuff like that, there's benefits for it. So, I don't know if just, America being the size it is one of the reasons it happens. I'm sure state to state, county to county, there's probably some wonderful programs to help people play music for a living. I've seen some firsthand. So it does exist, but on that national scale, I mean, I think you're asking a bigger question about American governance. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Which is like, why don't we have this? Well, we don't have a lot of shit.
Yeah.
And it's, and like we'll probably get universal health care before, musicians
Yeah.
start to get paid to make records. Or
It's
neither.
because it's so crazy. Like you can shoot a movie in like Montreal and like the south of France and get like 75% of your budget from like Canada and France and like in like a pack that they have. It's
right.
absolutely wild. But it's just crazy to see because like you see like a bunch of like almost like music incubators at like the shore and between like Asbury and like Red Bank. And you know what the result has been? I mean, you've got at least my age, you've got like a couple pop stars, you got like your Charlie Puths, your like Fletchers, all coming from like Monmouth County. So I don't
Mhm.
know if places want stuff like that, maybe invest a little bit in your people.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you said kind of nails it on the head. The only things that currently exist for the most part are people who made money in music
Yeah.
bringing their own money back to places to help. So I do think it exists, but like way less on a, no one's writing laws for this, let's say that. And I
That's
think
right.
COVID really highlighted the fact that we are you know, not doing the best for people who decide to follow the arts in this country.
Yeah. Well, that was a complete non sequitur. And let's move on to our MO. We got some hoops action. Benny, the All Stars are set.
Oh yeah.
The 14 reserves for the 2023 All Star game was announced on Thursday. And they joined the player pool for Team LeBron and Team Giannis. Sadly, we're not going to get to see James Harden pick last because the fans were like, "Oh, we don't even want you there at all."
We're good on that.
But let's move down the Western Conference, see who our reserves are. So we have Paul George of the Clippers, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, OKC Thunder. Love him getting in. This one surprised a lot of people. Jaren Jackson Jr. of the Memphis Grizzlies got in. Damian Lillard of the Trailblazers, Larry Markkinen, Utah Jazz, John Morant of the Memphis Grizzlies, and Domantas Sabonis of the Kings. Biggest snub here for a lot of people was De'Aaron Fox, myself included. I thought him over Jaren Jackson. If Fox is coming in, who'd you send home? I think, and this sounds crazy to say if you hadn't been watching much this year, I think you keep Fox and you send home Paul George.
Yeah, I think so too. That's actually exactly the move I would have made for this team. Especially with the up and down nature of the Clippers. A lot of games, Paul George, he doesn't take games off, but there's been a number of games this year where he has not been the most important part of that team on the way to a win. And has there been many games this year where De'Aaron Fox hasn't been one of the more important parts of his team to win? Also, I think one thing not taking into account is De'Aaron Fox has some like really incredible fourth quarter numbers this year. He is fucking putting games away by himself. And that should count. What is all this statistical stuff if it's not going towards winning? The Kings have been shit forever. They're third in the conference. And I think this really, as we spoke about before, it came from, two Kings?
Yeah.
We can't have two Kings. What are you, crazy? So I think they literally just picked between Sabonis and Fox. I think that's almost what happened.
Yeah. And that's really crazy to me because I don't think Memphis, for what they talk about and for as much hype as they get now, to have two guys in, I mean, granted, I guess if, the Warriors were struggling and you would have had two Warriors in the past, but maybe get to NBA Finals first before you get two guys. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, fair, but I just don't know if Paul George was the one,
Yeah.
Did Anthony Edwards deserve it instead? There's a bunch of people who I think are having comparable years to Paul George, especially with the Clippers record. If the Clippers were 10 games above 500 and Kawhi was taking every other game off, sure.
Yeah.
Paul George, you're the man. You don't have a point guard. You're doing this by yourself. Good for you, but it's just not the case. So I didn't think it was right.
Let's get to the Jaren Jackson Jr. of it all then. Statistically awesome, but has this season, is the statistical impact in his stat sheet, is that the same as his impact on the team this season? Or is this just hey, this guy, fantasy, awesome, ton of blocks, ton of assists and stuff like that. So do you think this levels out?
I do. I think the Grizzlies semi fall apart without this guy. And I think, Ja obviously is gets the credit, and especially with, them making a run without him at one point would do that. But you see the way this team plays. Now, is Jaren Jackson is this just the modern NBA where our typical counting stats aren't really working for Jaren Jackson, especially offensively, right?
Yeah.
But his plus minus stats, his, all the other advanced analytic type stuff about his impact on the floor when he's on the floor, is probably the reason why he's in there. And, I think in some ways we need to start, the same way baseball pushed wins above replacement and, certain other stats. I think there's a couple stats the NBA really needs to start putting in their normal lexicon besides for the normal stuff, besides for plus minus, which is a little, who knows, and I think that's a little bit what happened with Jaren Jackson. And the home cooking on those blocks.
Yeah. I've been angling to try to get him in our league for a long time, but I don't think that's going to be a move that's going to happen.
No,
but so in the Western Conference, give me a few replacement players. I don't think Zion's going to play in the All-Star game, and we're probably a few of these guys probably won't ever actually make it to Utah.
Yeah.
Potential Western Conference replacement players.
Well, I mean, I think I said too, De'Aaron Fox should be right there if he's not, the person doing it. And then I would say probably Anthony Edwards
Yeah,
is close,
100%.
and he
Yeah.
might be the next one for me. Just because, like, what's going on with that team this
Yeah.
year
Yeah.
without it? And that's again, this is where my head always goes to when I'm choosing all stars and stuff like this. Is what does that team look like without that player?
Yeah.
What are the Kings doing without De'Aaron Fox? What are the Timberwolves doing without Edwards? But we're kind of leaving out maybe the biggest guy, Anthony Davis, without the injuries, is an all-star starter. So the fact that he's healthy, playing, being impactful on the team, has enough games, and he's the fucking unibrow. He's in Space Jam 2. Like, he's probably going to wind up getting the nod over anyone just because of that.
Yeah. And
And
Lakers.
deservedly so or not, I don't know. But that's where I would love the NBA to start just giving us a game's fucking threshold,
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. It's like you have to play. Yeah.
when am I allowed to vote this guy an all-star? 27 games he
Yeah.
has to play, 28? Like, just give me the threshold and then this will all be fixed. What about Aaron Gordon?
Yeah, I mean, you've West leading team. I always think that like the team that's atop of the conference should have two players. That's why that was kind of my logic on Jaren Jackson. I think that they're in like third right now. So it's like, yeah, Aaron Gordon, Jokic, lock it in.
Yeah. I mean, he could easily make a case for him.
Yeah. So, all right, that's the Western Conference. We're gonna move to the Eastern Conference now. Eastern Conference reserves my guy Bam Adebayo, Jaylen Brown of the Boston Celtics, DeMar DeRozan, Chicago Bulls, Joel Embiid, a guy that should have been a starter, got just a pure numbers game there, of the Philadelphia 76ers, Tyrese Halliburton of the Indiana Pacers, Drew Holiday. I thought that was kind of a surprising move to get into the All-Star game from my Milwaukee Bucks. And the biggest surprise of it all, Julius Randle, All-Star again.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if you noticed this, Benny, but I did not mention a name. No James Harden, despite averaging 21.4 points, 6.4 rebounds, and what should be a league best 11 assists per game. I got to ask this question, and I asked it a couple weeks ago. Is this an indictment on Philadelphia? It's got to be, right?
Yeah, Philadelphia and him.
Yeah.
He's made it the last 10 years.
Yeah.
He hasn't been an all-star since the Thunder. And, I think in some ways because of like the drama with the Nets and how dysfunctional that fucking team has been for a couple years, I think some people sort of glossed over James Harden's antics. And everybody kind of has quickly forgotten that he fucking ate his way off two teams in a year. Like, people are pissed at this guy because he's shown time and time again when he just gives up on something, he's done.
Yeah.
And I'm like just waiting for him to hit the cheesesteaks in Philly when something goes wrong too. So it's like, that's part of it to me, is like, I don't know, bro, you did this to yourself a little bit. Like people don't like you right now. And that's the reason.
Yeah.
So, and to me, if you were going to put other people on this list, I don't even think it would be Harden.
Yeah. It started with him, flying private to the Bahamas between Rockets games. And then I can't like the way that he ate his way last season. I mean, just a unbelievable stretch here. I've never been more sure that a guy is going to blow up weight-wise after his career. Sometimes you see these like guys and it's like 10 years after their career and like super fat and you're like, what the hell happened? James Harden, 100%.
Yeah, it's like the reverse offensive lineman retirement thing. Yeah.
All right. So if we want to put Harden on this list, who are we taking off? Drew?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. That's probably the most obvious one. And who'd you mention before that I think is someone you could have taken off? But I mean, I like Randall in here, and I think he deserves it. I mean, like try to think about the Knicks without this guy. But one of the other guards that you could have made a case for is Jalen Brunson.
Yeah.
To me, there's one player who kind of gets glossed over a lot, and I don't know if because he's not a flashy guy, because of his team, for a number of reasons. But I mean, does anyone watch Pascal Siakam play basketball like every day? Like, this might be the most consistent contributor all the time on a team like in the league. He's so overlooked that I think, part of this is like name recognition and stuff like that. And like Drew Holiday's a big name in this league. He
Yeah.
just won some titles. He's with Giannis. It's got the whole thing. So I mean, but Drew's probably on there because of his defensive stuff, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I can't
would
make a case for
imagine.
him on offense. I would say Randall. I'd say Brunson should have gotten in if
Yeah.
Julius Randle didn't. I can't justify two Knicks on this, but
100%.
I'd say the next in line to me was Siakam.
Yeah, I'd go Siakam and then I'd go Jalen Brunson, and that makes a lot more sense to me than listen. I love Drew Holiday. That stretch where Giannis was out, he kept the Bucks afloat there. But I mean, what Jalen Brunson has meant to the Knicks way more important than Julius Randle.
Yeah, I mean, even watch a game like last night. Like I'm
Yeah.
looking at the box score last night, and I see Giannis. A very, very efficient fucking 55 or whatever the hell he put up last night. I don't think anyone on the team scored over like 14.
Yeah.
It's like giving someone on the Mavs a nod or something. like it's just how can you,
Yeah. And we're gonna get to Giannis and his because a lot of Kareem history in the offering. Kareem seems to be a guy who is in the NBA conversation right now. It all started with winning time, and he just seems to be manifesting himself upon the culture, which is cool to see. But Benny, last night we had a fight.
Oh yeah,
So to
big
speak.
fight.
So
Big
to
fight.
speak. Yeah. All right. The way the ESPN notification said there was like massive brawl, I was like,
Yeah.
did like a melee at the Palace happen? No, it wasn't
No,
that. But
not even a punch throw.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
a ball tap maybe. But
Yeah.
all right, things got
Jordan
heated.
Clarkson's quicker to get going than him. Yeah.
Things got heated quickly on Thursday night in Cleveland. By the time things settled, Donovan Mitchell and Dylan Brooks were ejected in the middle of the Cavaliers' 128-113 win over the Memphis Grizzlies. Midway through the third quarter at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse, Brooks had a layup blocked at the rim, and as he rolled over to the ground, just a little
how's your father?
little how's your father, which caused Reggie Miller to say, "Oh, that wasn't anything." An all-time NBA, that wasn't anything player turned broadcaster.
Exactly.
All of it.
Yeah.
But
Tell
then
that to a Knicks fan.
this prompted Donovan Mitchell to just chuck the ball at Dylan Brooks, which on first viewing, you're like, what the fuck, Donovan Mitchell? But then you're like, oh, guy got hit in the nads.
Yeah. No, clear response.
So they both got ejected. More impressively was the Grizzlies assistant who came over and just threw a haymaker on Dylan Brooks to make sure he wouldn't do anything else. So
dude, I love that.
Just a shit show all around in Cleveland. What did you make of it?
Well, I think we caught like the tail end of a long running thing. Mitchell was on the Jazz most of the years, and I think the last few years he's had quite a few head-to-head matchups with Dylan Brooks. They play the same position, and so this is obviously not a first-time incident. Mitchell made that clear after the game where he was saying, this is this guy being this guy, and we expect it, and I've seen it before. So obviously some shit has happened with these guys in the past. And I think Mitchell, who is usually a pretty collected cat, let's give him credit for his historical precedents, right?
Mm-hmm.
Usually not the type of guy to do something like this. And I think it was a very fair reaction to what happened in this case. Like, I always hate seeing it, but in that moment, it was obviously, to me, there was obvious intent with what Dylan Brooks did, and you have the right to protect yourself. And speaking of historical precedents, I think it goes the other way where, people know who Dylan Brooks is at this point. He's hurt people before. And I think that the league has a bit of a target for him, and kind of rightly so at this point. So I think that's why it started. Now let's talk about this guy breaking up the fight. To me, this seemed like the coaching staff seems so ready for it, almost as if I think they've been coached. Like it looked like they've run drills, like fighting drills on like how to pour off the bench and start a fight, because it was fast. And that kid or that man who got in there and just bear hugged Dylan Brooks to the ground to keep him separated from everyone. I mean, I fucking loved it. I think it's so funny watching that shit. And the fact that I think this is the like 10 years after fallout of not being able to leave the bench for a fight. You know, maybe it's one of the reasons people have like 7 assistant coaches now on their fucking benches is just for fight breakup. But yeah, it seemed almost as if these guys have been drilled at practice to get in the middle of it if they could.
I'm going to take that a step further. I think that this was practice for later in the season. Perfect execution. He falls to the ground almost by out of bounds so that he could roll there, hit the nad, roll out of bounds. You have your guy come in there. You know, Donovan Mitchell may have gotten ejected tonight, but they're eyeing for somebody bigger in the playoffs that they can take out. Imagine if this happens to Steph Curry. Oh, I can't wait.
Oh, so you think this is
Practice.
like
Not a
practice?
game.
Wow. Not a game. Not a game. Wow, that's interesting. You better save this tape if it happens again.
I don't want to be right in this because my paychecks come from the NBA. But all right. Well, we talked about Giannis, and he had another 50-point outing. Just a big night in the association last night. We're going to try to get to as much of it as possible. The Bucks came down from 21 down at home to beat the Clippers 106-105. Giannis went for 54 in the win. His 54 points were the second highest scoring total of his career, just one shy of the 55 he put up against the Wizards on January 3rd. Coming into the season, Giannis had just 3 50-point outings in 9 years. In the month of January, he has 3 in the last month. So just crazy. The only other player in Bucks franchise history to have as many 50-point games in one season is Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. So, Benny, is Giannis making his MVP case heard? It's getting hard to ignore.
Yeah, of course. Of course. And I think one of the cool things about Giannis is like, do we have to make a difference between perimeter players getting 50 and inside players getting 50? Like, you know, I feel like the way Giannis gets 50 is a very efficient, grueling for him kind of 50. And the nights when like Steph Curry gets 50 or somebody like that gets 50, it's because they got really hot from 3 and hit 9 that night or something crazy, you know, not always, but I'm just saying is there a delineation? Like, is a 50-point performance from like an Embiid or a Giannis more impressive than a perimeter player?
I think it's less impressive because of the physical. Like, I think it takes. Well, I don't know, because then that's discrediting footwork. I'm not sure.
Interesting thing, right?
Yeah.
I think we got to think about that. Now that we're seeing so many 50-point games, do we have to start delineating between what kind of 50-point games?
Yeah.
But no, I think it's making the MVP case a clear, you know, thing between what is it now? We got Jokic, Giannis, Luka, Embiid. These are only 4 people you could even potentially vote for at this point, right?
Yeah.
So it's getting slimmer and slimmer. But all these teams are atop the West and the East, you know, exception of Luka, and I think we have a lot more 50-point games to come from what it seems this season. So, but I do think it's cementing Giannis in this spot, especially with the Bucks holding tight at number 2 there in the East. I mean, they've been so consistent right there the whole season. So yeah, Giannis is for sure making his case, especially with how efficiently he's doing it.
Yeah. I'm going to change my answer. I think getting to the paint and getting 50 that way, because you need way more attempts. I think his footwork and the way that he is able to get some of these buckets, it's like an unnatural hand movement. And I don't know if Giannis is doing yoga or something like that, but the way he's able to be out of bounds and like kind of like caress the ball, like unbelievable. Because as you were saying that, I'm thinking Steph Curry 50 points, like, you know what's going to happen.
Right.
Giannis 50 points, he's going through like 3 people.
Yeah, and that's the thing with Giannis too, is like, you know, and I think that's why he almost always gets Shaq comparisons. It's because you know exactly what's coming.
Yeah.
And you just can't stop it.
Yeah.
Like, you know, that's the thing. The other guys can still trick you. Yeah. They still got these weird, you know, Giannis is just like, I can go left, I go right. I can get into the paint from half court in like 4 fucking steps and try to stop me.
Yeah.
And now I can shoot free throws. So you can't foul me that much either. And it's, I don't know, it is really impressive. I love watching Giannis work.
But the conversation between him and Jokic, it's interesting because I think that Jokic does more to make the rest of his team better, which I don't know what you define value as. I think if you like the game last night where they're down 21, I'm not sure that Jokic can aid a 21-point comeback against the Clippers as compared to like Giannis just goes full force there. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point, if Jokic finishes the season where he's at right now, right, which is 25 points a game on 63% shooting, 82% from the line, he's averaging 11 boards, 10 assists, 1.5 steals a game with 35 double-doubles, 17 triple-doubles for a big man.
Yeah.
Like, if Jokic finishes with over 10 assists, he's, am I not mistaken, the first player since Oscar Robertson and Russell Westbrook to finish the season averaging a triple-double?
Yeah.
And
that matters, yeah.
We gave one to Westbrook.
Yeah.
Who maybe or maybe did not deserve it that year. And we were like, come on, he averaged a triple-double. If he averages a triple-double, Nuggets are sitting at top of the West. Doesn't look like they're slowing down. They're already a few games up.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. How the fuck do you take it away from this guy?
Yeah.
You know?
Hard to argue. But then I think like this would be like the last one unless they win a championship. His future MVPs are completely going to be determined by whether they can get it done like this year, which is going to be a tough task for them.
I mean, even something simply like we look at the other scores in the league, you know, Jokic averages 15 shots a game.
Yeah.
Luka averages 22.3. Giannis averages 21, you know, LeBron 23. Right. Like, you know, it's just it's the double thing. It's like everybody's, you know, so impressed with, he's doing both. He's doing it on the floor and doing it statistically. So it's like, it's starting to get hard to make a case against it, you know?
100%. Well, you mentioned LeBron James, and I'm so happy that you did, because LeBron is now 63 points away from passing Kareem to become the NBA's all-time leading scorer. James finished with 26 points, 7 rebounds, and 7 assists, and fueled Lakers to another frantic victory, this time erasing a 14-point deficit against the Pacers. They got the 112-111 victory. That one was crazy down the stretch. They are at the Pelicans tomorrow. They host OKC on the 7th, and they host the Bucks on the 9th. And Benny, this makes me very sad, but the NBA scriptwriters are at it again. He's gonna break Kareem's record in a Lakers-Bucks game, isn't he?
Yeah, I think he has to at this point. Like, and if he does, like, yeah, it's gonna. Because is that a TV game? It's got to be a TV game, right? Yeah, I would be shocked. Absolutely shocked if he didn't break it that game. But what does he need? 53 points?
63.
63. Yeah,
20 a game.
100%. That's the way it's going to go down. And
at Staples,
we've talked about it a lot of times. It's LeBron James. You know, guy knows what he's doing. He missed the Knicks game, so he's pacing himself for the Bucks game. He knows exactly what he's doing.
He wants to do it at home with Kareem sitting in
the
front.
To lose badly. Yeah, potentially.
To lose badly.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. But I mean, what are we gonna do with the Lakers here? What's going on?
Well,
tied with OKC. They're still a game out of the play-in, 2.5 games out of the top 6. Not that much, you know. Like, I think the thing saving the Lakers right now is the middle of the West being so average. Like, the only thing, like, if the Lakers were in the East right now with 25 games, like, they're actually in the play-in the East, but you don't think they could get through it. And I do wonder, like, the fact that you're seeing these teams like Clippers, Timberwolves, Jazz, Pelicans, all these teams, you know, Blazers, all these teams kind of having a lot of problems are the teams ahead of the Lakers, I think is one of the reasons we're still seeing them like really wet the whistle, thinking they can get through and get something done in the last month.
Yeah.
You know, and that's why I think the Lakers may still like have a nice trade in there for them.
Well, oh my gosh, you're just teeing me up today. Well, the reports coming out from our guy Chris Haynes is that the conversation between Utah and the Lakers, it's back on. You know, it's like NBA cuffing season, because, you know, it was their summertime fling, and now you're getting closer to Valentine's Day, and they just want to canoodle a little bit. You know, it's cold in Utah.
This is Danny Ainge doing the Danny Ainge. He wanted too much 6 months ago. He wants too much now. And someone is finally getting to the point where they're like, ugh, I guess we got to give up too much to get what we want.
Baby, it's not you, it's me.
He's doing the Ainge. I got to appreciate it at this point. You know, what a fucking stick in the mud. People
Yeah.
must hate him. They must fucking hate him. He's
Oh.
really good at his job, but I bet there's 30 other GMs who are like, Jesus fucking Christ with this guy, you know?
But the conversation this time around is heated up regarding Russell Westbrook, who has been impressive in the Lakers' stretch here of late. The Lakers are said to be in communication with most teams, though, as they sit through a reasonable way. I'm kind of looking at this Utah thing. The Lakers gave up their picks to try to go get Rui, and that's pretty good. You know, he went for 19 and 9 the other night. I just don't see, they give up Russ. What do they get back? Like Jordan Clarkson and like Jared Vanderbilt?
I mean, sure. If you're the Lakers, you don't do that
No,
to
no,
get
no.
off Russ.
Why would
Why does
Utah do that?
Jazz do
Yeah.
that? Oh, okay, yeah. Well, they do it for those coveted first round picks. Like that's what they're looking for. There's nobody the Lakers are going to give back that actually helps the Jazz.
Yeah.
You know, so I think it's obviously for the Jazz, like strictly contractual, anything that comes back. But you know, here's what I wonder too. You are Danny Ainge. You're still selling tickets. The Jazz are in the, tied for the 7 seed, a half game out of the 6 seed. And you're really going to tell your fans, these rabid fucking Utah fans right now, like, hey, I'm dropping like 3 rotational pieces and you're going to watch Russell Westbrook for the rest of the year. This, this great team that's gelling and doing this. Like, where does marketing go when he's on the floor? Like, why do we think at any stage that Russell Westbrook is going to get traded and be the kind of piece you can sneak in and make it? You can't.
Yeah.
So the only thing that's the thing that stops me from making this deal is like, Utah's fun this year and they're a good team. And if something isn't coming back that's actually going to nourish this team for the rest of the way and next season, I don't think they're doing it, man. So the idea that they're just going to take on dead weight contracts at this point doesn't make a lot of sense to me in some ways. It makes sense for the Lakers, of course.
Yeah.
But, I think the Jazz, in order to do something like this, are really going to have to get like both picks. And I think you're only getting one player, like that's how desperate these teams are.
And I don't think that the Lakers gave up their 2 second-round picks in that deal. I don't know when their next picks are. Like, are you really gonna like
going into the 2030s
yeah.
at this point? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And I think obviously I don't have any insider information on this, but it really seems as if when LeBron decided to sign that extension, that like maybe there was kind of a backroom conversation about like, hey, like if I'm doing this, you gotta be fucking in the next couple of years, like, or else I'm not gonna do it. Like why does LeBron out of nowhere, the guy who very, very smartly did 1-on-1 contracts for almost his entire, post Miami career, why does he all of a sudden do that and give him no flexibility right at the end?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it might have something to do with it. And that's why I think the Lakers don't want to give up those picks, but still might have to.
I'm excited for this deal when Russ is like traded to Toronto for Bronny so that Bronny can play for the Lakers. And, like that whole thing happens, but I don't know.
And I think the haul and I think Utah coming back is probably going to be like more Malik Beasley, maybe Sexton, like guys like that rather than Clarkson. I think Clarkson might be staying
out of it. Yeah, 100%. A couple other deals before we get out of the door that we just want to talk about. Boy, Benny, you want to talk about a team that has a lot of problems. The Hawks have reportedly lowered the price for Collins, and the Jazz and the Rockets are interested. A bunch of teams also calling the Atlanta Hawks for the services of Bogdan Bogdanovic. But John Collins is reportedly, according to Sam Amick, the guy who's most likely to be traded. How do we get here? It seems like they had a lot of pieces, and now they're just selling it for parts.
I don't think they are. I think this is like I think Atlanta thinks they're pretty good.
Yeah.
And I think Atlanta's going to try with this group. Like they haven't had them together a lot. You literally put Trae Young and DeJounte Murray together, like an experiment. It takes a little while. But when this team has all these pieces around, they're still pretty fucking good sometimes. And there's some nights where I look at the Hawks and I'm like, why aren't the Hawks, as good as the Knicks, the Heat, You know, like they're somewhere around there on those nights. And then there's another night where you're like, Jesus Christ, Hawks should blow it up. But I think those eye tests you see every once in a while are going to make the Hawks stay put. And I think John Collins' value in the trade rumor market is far lower than it is in the trade market.
Yeah.
Still a really fucking good player, you know, and he does a lot of different things and he's dynamic, and Atlanta misuses him a lot and he doesn't get a lot of shots. But I don't think like the actual league is as low on this guy as people talking about him are, you know? So I actually think the Hawks stay put.
I just don't know where they'd find a deal for him, because, you know, they're going to want a lot more than I think the most GMs would feel comfortable putting out for John Collins.
I mean, Hawks to me are the classic team. Don't freak out.
Yeah.
They're the classic team. Don't freak out. What I see on this team is like improving pieces and a team that can keep getting better while staying good.
Yeah.
You know, like I see DeAndre Hunter get better and better, better offensive player than he was last year. Okongwu, the more and more time he gets, interesting player, good looking player. AJ Griffin might be one of the steals of this draft, how late he went, because he's a nice looking player. And, you know, Bogdanovich has barely played all year. And now he's finally in the mix, like kind of cementing that bench. I think the Hawks stay put.
I think this is a classic case of, you know, a few years ago they make that deep playoff run, and that changed the entire timeline in the mind of their fans.
Push the timeline up too fast. Yeah.
100%. All right. Last deal we got, Toronto Raptors remain an interesting team as we approach the deadline. According to Sportsnet's Michael Grange, nobody knows what the Raptors are going to do, but the general consensus is that they're not going to keep Pascal Siakam and Fred VanVleet and OG long term. VanVleet has outplayed his $22.8 million contract. Chris Haynes also reporting that Anunoby would like a change of scenery, adding that there is a bidding war happening. Memphis doesn't want New Orleans to get OG. New Orleans doesn't want Memphis to get OG. So I didn't think his value was going to be this high on the market, but yet here we are.
Yeah, I mean, scoring 3-and-D guys, shit. Like, look at the kind of balls Jaw Crowder has right now for some reason. You know, like these guys are really valuable in the NBA right now, and every team needs one. How badly the Lakers need a guy like this, you know? And Toronto, of course, is in that position. I mean, they're 7 games under 500. They're literally, 2.5 games above the Orlando Magic currently. So, I mean, Toronto, like, if you start thinking a certain way, still got all these interesting pieces on your team, and you can slip into the top 5 of the draft right now.
Yeah.
You know, and you're already kind of close to being there. Like, you know, this is where the fans, this almost the exact opposite of, you know, what I'm saying about Utah is like Toronto fans are smart basketball fans. They're 7 games below 500. They're 2 games out of the 10 seed, you know, and almost 6 games out of the 6 seed. Do you see this team making a kind of run to be like impactful moving forward? I don't. And I think their fans are smart. And I think Toronto right now is the most logical shoe to drop. And OG has I don't think they're going to get rid of Siakam. So I think OG has the highest value by far. And a lot of teams make a lot of sense. So to me, that seems like the most logical domino to fall in this whole thing.
The chess match in negotiations between David Griffin and Masai Ujiri is going to be like an all-timer, because these are 2 guys who always get the better of the deals. Right. And to see them try to play us out, it's going to be phenomenal.
I think, and part of it might be where people value Fred VanVleet these days.
Yeah.
You know, like, I think there are still teams in the league who see VanVleet as a very, very huge asset, and some teams that see him as a probably overpaid, undersized point guard. Especially who needs a new deal coming up. So I think VanVleet's a lot sketchier of a proposal than OG is.
100%. All right. Well, we want to hear your fake trade proposals.
Please,
Deadline's coming up on the 9th. Hit us in the chat. Hit us on the Tune Up social platforms. Tune Up HQ on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Instagram. Tune Up HQ, YouTube, subscribe. Shout out to the chat. Neil, we see you. Neil saying Bron made a call and got some bodies. I don't know what that means. But yeah, if you want to follow Big Man on Instagram, he is at Benny Horowitz. I am at Deny Gallagher. Ben, you got anything else?
Everybody loves somebody.
The t-shirt coming soon, tuneup.com. The show has ended. Go in peace. You have been listening to and watching The Tune Up.